Some of you are old enough to remember Don Meredith, one of the members of the original broadcast team of Monday Night Football. After an important play that clinched the victory, but before the game was actually over, Dandy Don would break into song singing, "Turn out the lights, the party's over." The rest of the game was just a formality. Fans of the losing team would start streaming for the exits before the final gun officially ended the game. The final gun didn't make the losers any sadder than they already were, because they already knew they were going to lose. By that time, they fully expected the result, so the result itself wasn't news. That happens in stock markets too. If we know something bad is sure to happen, then when it happens, it isn't news. Brad Cornell gives the example of the federal government seizing Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac in early September 2008. On its face, that should have been a huge event. After all, just Fannie Mae alone reported that in August 2008, it had issued or guaranteed over $3 trillion worth of mortgages. And just a few months earlier, politicians and regulators had been telling the world that Fannie and Freddie were just fine. Yet the market return on the day of the government seizure doesn't make the list of the top 50 most extreme market moves. Why not? The answer is that most important market players were already convinced that Fannie and Freddie were zombie institutions at the time, and that a federal takeover was just a matter of when, not if. By the time the seizure actually happened, it wasn't really news. We still have a lot to learn about what makes stock prices move. Specifically, we'd all like to know more about the kind of news that changes the market's perception of stock values. Way back in 1989, economists David Cutler, James Poterba, and Lawrence Summers tried to find the cause of the 50 largest one-day market moves on the S&P 500 index from 1946 through 1987. They reported that they just couldn't do it for a lot of those 50. Many times they just couldn't find any good reason why any of the things that determine a stock's value might have changed. Not future profits, which are an estimate of what we're calling the amount of cash the stock will provide. Not when the stock will provide that cash. Not even the cost of waiting for that cash. Nothing. In 2012, Bradford Cornell found pretty much the same thing. He wrote, "Despite the explosion in information technology, enhanced market regulation, innovation in stock trading, and the introduction of new equity-related financial products, large movements in the market remain as common and mysterious as ever." Cornell could only find economic news that could have had a substantial effect on the forces that drive stock prices in a minority of the 50 largest moves from 1988 through 2012. In fact, Cornell found that the explanations the media pundits usually trotted out sounded reasonable, but didn't really explain anything. We've all heard statements like, "The market fell today as shares were pressured by increased selling." But there was a buyer for every seller. Why didn't the market rise? Because of the increased buying. If the market had gone up, then the media guy would have said the same thing, except he'd change selling to buying. This type of purported explanation doesn't help me understand what makes stock prices move. It sounds a lot like being the parent of a teenager. If you're the parent of a teenager, you understand that sometimes your child's behavior defies explanation. Your friend will ask, "Why did she do that?" All you can do is shrug your shoulders, throw up your hands, and say, "She's a teenager." Your friend will smile and nod her head, as if being a teenager somehow explains things. You can explain anything a teenager does by saying, "She's a teenager." But it really doesn't explain anything. It doesn't tell us how to shape our child's behavior so that she doesn't do the same dumb things that we did when we were her age. We need to understand a lot more about how human beings respond to social pressures, hormonal changes, aspirations, and insecurities. "She's a teenager" sounds so much better than "I have no idea." Have you ever noticed that the financial media explains stock market behavior the same way?